okay. Well, I did press the button where it said stop sharing. So let me see where.
I don't know what's happening.
Stop sharing. Press the button where it said stop sharing. So
here we go. Yeah, that worked.
It did.
Yep.
Ken, I can see you. You're looking good today. How are you feeling?
Good, good. Can you actually see me with this lighting?
I can actually see you.
Okay.
Ken, I can see you.
Here I can see it's very dark. Good. I think we are live now.
Oh, good morning.
Hola, buenos días. Ya vamos a iniciar.
Good morning. We are about to begin.
Ok. Hola, bueno.
Good morning. We are ready to begin. Please remember to keep your mics muted until each of us will be giving their presentation. That way we avoid any feedback.
Muy buenos días. Me llamo.
Good morning. I am Nikki Conklin, and I am a specialist in international relations at the Regional Office for Latin America of the FDA. Along with AICA, we are offering some online seminars on any issues related to Fsma. The first was offered last April to provide information on the Foreign Supplier Verification Program. At that point, during our question and answer session, we received some questions on the Accredited Third-Party Certification Program and the Voluntary Qualified Importer Program. In response to such interest on these matters, today we bring this seminar. On this occasion, we have translated some documents related to these programs to help you read and guide yourselves with the directives offered by FDA on the correct handling of these topics. These documents are available in the same page you have used to enter this presentation. Now I have the pleasure to present our two conference speakers, my colleagues at the FDA, who are experts in the areas they will be covering. Mr. Ken Nieves will be talking about the Accredited Third-Party Certification Program, and Dory De Leon will be talking about the Voluntary Qualified Importer Program. In his current post, Mr. Nieves, in the position of Fsma, is analyst of international policies, focusing on implementation of the accredited third-party certification program under Fsma. Before Fsma, Mr. Nieves was regional director for the Regional Office for Latin America, focusing on food safety matters. Mr. Nieves started his career at the FDA in 1999 as researcher and microbiologist in a regional lab. Ms. De Leon has worked with Susan since 2002, and she is the expert on compliance activities related to imports. She is also advisor to the industry, state officers, and consumers on compliance policies and methods and interpretations of regulations. She is co-lead of the working group for import controls related to Fsma. She's also in charge of leading activities for implementing several programs on imports. We thank you very much for your interest in this seminar, and we hope that with these seminar, you have better knowledge of these programs after your participation. With that, I give the floor to Anna. Good morning, everyone, and thank you for the time and space taken to join us. and sharing this initiative, which is a product of an agreement, a cooperation agreement with the FDA we've had for 5 or 6 years now, with the goal of working jointly to provide all necessary information on standards that have been published and approved in the context of implementing the new Food Safety Act in the United States. Today, as we heard from Nikki, we will have presentations related to the accredited third-party certification program and the voluntary qualified importer program. We will first have the presentation by Mr. Ken Nieves on the accredited third-party certification program. After that, we will have some time for questions and comments. For that, we appreciate it if you send your questions through the email that is available for our broadcast. We will do as much as we can to answer your questions and comments. After that, we will begin with the presentation by Dorlis de Leon on the Voluntary Qualified Importer Program. And after that, we will also have some time for questions and answers. Additionally, we should just mention that on the event website, you will be able to follow the presentations in the box under description, and also any supporting documents available in Spanish and English. With that, we now have our first presentation on the requirements under the Accredited Third-Party Certification Program by Mr. Ken Nieves. Go ahead, Ken, and good morning. Thank you. Good morning, everyone. Ana Maria, can you see my presentation? Yes, we can. Just be sure to put it in presentation mode so we don't view all the screen. It's easier to follow if we just have the large slide. Yes, I've tried to. It's not working for some reason.
En la esquina inferior izquierda.
Sí, no, es que tengo múltiples.
I have several monitors and somehow it's showing up on another one, so I can't do much about it. Let me see if I can switch.
¿Qué tal ahora?
No, tal vez ahí lo que podemos hacer es lo siguiente. Si
All right, maybe then we can do something different. Don't share your screen anymore. And before you share the screen, go to the PowerPoint presentation. And open it in presentation mode or slideshow. All right, I'm doing that. And now switch back to the conference and share the screen. You should see a group of presentations and choose that one. And then share. Perfect. That's great. Thank you. All right, apologies for that technical glitch. I hope you can follow now. Okay. Good morning. And thank you very much, Ana Maria and Nicole, for your presentation. It's a pleasure for me to be part of this conference. And thank you for Aika for making this possible. In this presentation, we will be looking at the following topics. What is the accredited third-party certification program and what it is not? It's what is an accreditation body under this program, as well as a certification body. User fees, because this is a voluntary program. The status of the program to date and resources available. Section 307 of Fsma, which is the Food Safety Act, requires the FDA to have an accredited third-party certification program. Here we can see a visual representation of the program. The FDA recognizes accreditation bodies based on certain criteria included in the regulations, such as training and impartiality. Accreditation bodies accredit qualified third-party auditors. They are in charge of food safety audits and they issue certificates to farms or facilities outside of the US or the food they produce that is being exported to the US. We should highlight that the FDA will supervise all levels of the program at all times with monitoring activities, for example. This includes the ability to remove the accreditation from a third-party auditor that has been problematic. The FDA does not have to wait for the program to act before it can take measures against a certification body that may be problematic or a company or a food that is certified under the program. Also, the FDA can revoke the recognition of an accredited auditor or service if it has any issues. Now, what is the third-party program? As I stated, this is a voluntary program, and it is fee-based. The accredited certification bodies under this program issue certificates for two purposes: to be able to be part of the VQIP program in the US, and these can also be used for import certifications when required. The VQIP program, which later will be clarified by my colleague Doris de Leon, any importer wishing to participate in this program needs to have certifications issued under the third-party program of the FDA. Outside audits outside of the program will not be accepted or eligible to be part for an importer to be part of VQIP. Therefore, third-party audits, the program, are also one of the eligibility criteria for VQIP. Both programs are interdependent. As for the import certification, Fsma also provides the FDA with tools to require certifications as a condition for entry when certain criteria are met. For example, if there is an imminent risk of public health or safety linked to a food product that is being imported to the United States, when there are safety issues or risks linked to the country or origin of the food product, or when there are issues with the regulatory capacities of the country to ensure the FDA's food safety rules. I'd also like to say that the FDA wishes to use import certifications in very limited circumstances. In that sense, as I understand it, the import certification issue has led to some confusion. Contrary to rumors, Fsma does not require routine certifications for every package or delivery to the United States. It is required for importers to be part of the VQIP program. And when it is required under this program, along with the criteria I've just mentioned. If not, your facilities, farms, or products do not need a Fsma certification for every shipment unless the FDA states otherwise, for example, for import certification tools. You just need to ensure that your company or product comply with all the FDA regulations that apply, including those under Fsma or previously established ones. Importers in the US or facilities that receive your products also need to ensure that your products are in compliance. For this, they may require certain information to ensure that it is a safe product and it complies with all the requirements of the supply chain under Fsma regulations or others that apply to it. For example, HACCP, seafood, and juices. Now, what is not included in this program? Audits under FDA's third-party program are not required for FSVP and preventive control rules. Such rules only require that audits used as verification activity under them be done by a qualified auditor and consider applicable FDA food safety regulations. Such audits need not be performed by an accredited third-party program auditor of the FDA. Now, while you may use one, it is not a requirement. But if you do want to abide by the verification program for preventive control, the importer has to choose an accredited or qualified auditor if they choose to do so. And as we know, the third-party program has the requirement for the entity and the person in charge of importing to do the import side. For example, a foreign provider can use the third-party program accreditation to prove to the United States or the entity importing that they abide by applicable rules such as preventive control, HACCP, or fresh product rules. The importer or institution will consider this information to prove their compliance with FSVP. Additionally, the third-party program is not related to the laboratory accreditation program. The third-party program does not include lab accreditation. The FDA lab program for lab accreditation is still not available, and it will be independent from the third-party certification program. No, what must an accreditation or certification body applicant demonstrate to be part of the program? There are several things that need to be proven for the third-party accreditation. Possessing and demonstrating authority, first of all. This can be through a law, decree, or order, or different accreditations among participants. The accreditation body needs to have the authority to assess a third-party certification body for accreditation. The certification body needs to have the authority to conduct on-site audits on facilities or farms and to review records. These entities also need to possess and demonstrate capacity and competency, having adequate finances for operation, staff with the knowledge, skills, and experience to perform effectively, and having the resources and equipment necessary for audits. They should also have a written program to monitor quality assurance, as well as written measures to protect against conflicts of interest, and written procedures to establish, control, and retain records. What is an accreditation body under this program? Accreditation body means, according to the regulations, an authority that performs accreditation of third-party certification bodies in this specific section. An accreditation body can be a foreign government or agency or a private organization. An accreditation body may use documentation of its compliance with ISO 17011 and completing any deficiencies if necessary or other requirements, as well as using the ISO information as necessary to meet the requirements of these regulations. There are several responsibilities for accreditation bodies. Some of these include, and this is clearly stated in the regulations, is assessing third-party certification bodies for accreditation, monitoring the performance of third-party certification bodies they accredit, assessing correct problems in their own performance, submitting reports and other notifications to the FDA, for example, self-assessments, assessments of certification bodies, approved or denied accreditations of CBs, lists of CBs and audit agents, and providing these reports and records, as well as providing access to the FDA for these records. What is a certification body? Under the program, a certification body, also as per regulations, can be a foreign government or a private or third-party organization. And just like the accreditation body can use documents to prove its compliance with ISO to complement any requirements under the regulations. Here we see several of the audit requirements established for these organizations to work under the program. Audits under this program and the bodies need to be able to perform facility audits unannounced. They also need to notify the FDA on discovering a condition that could cause or contribute to a serious risk to public health, as well as submitting regulatory audit reports to the FDA and maintaining consultative audit reports. I'd like to stop here and mention the differences between the regulatory or consultative audits. The third-party program allows third-party accredited institutions to have consultative audit audits with their customers when necessary, and when the customer feels the need to be prepared for a regulatory audit under the program or an inspection, a routine inspection by the FDA. So the client requests the consultative audit through the program with a third-party accredited body. The regulatory audits will be considered to see in what level of compliance or stage of compliance a facility or farm is, and to see whether they can be certified under the program. There are several actions that the FDA has performed to be able to implement this voluntary program. These include the development of a guidance for the model accreditation standards, where certification bodies can go to establish their activities under the program. And also accreditation bodies can use them to evaluate the accreditation of certifying organisms or bodies that are trying to accredit. Because this is a voluntary program, there's also some rules establishing user fees. And because it's voluntary, fees have been established so the FDA can manage the program. These fees are based on calculations of hours of work for the FDA and other criteria to be able to monitor the program and recognize the third-party accreditation bodies, as well as monitoring the performance of third-party accreditations or certified bodies. These user fees are recalculated each fiscal year. U.S. fiscal years are from October 1st to September 30th. So on or before August 1st each year, the FDA publishes a Federal Register notice announcing user fee rates for the next fiscal year. You can find information on this link. These are some of the user fees, including fees, initial application fees for accreditation bodies seeking recognition, annual fees for recognized accreditation bodies, annual fees for accredited certification bodies under the accreditation bodies that have been acknowledged, as well as other fees for renewal that are also available for the program and that would be used if necessary. To date, the FDA has recognized 3 accreditation bodies. And these are the 3 entities, ANAB, ANSI, and ACFS. Each of these has been accredited and acknowledged as an accreditation body for certain regulations and areas under the program. For example, fresh products, preventive controls for human food, preventive controls for animal food. ANSI is also recognized for the HACCP program on juice and seafood. And any institution wishing to request the accreditation or certification body can go through the link included here, where you will find the public registry of recognized accreditation bodies, including these 3, with all the information to contact them. So you may request the requirements for a certification body. You can do this as per your interest on the specific lines or areas of food products that you would be covering and your capacities for those certifications. and you can do it globally. This slide gives you the link to see exactly where the accreditation of third-party certification bodies rules are available. And you can see all the details of how this program is being implemented, as well as the requirements for certification and accreditation bodies and the responsibilities each of them have. Here we can see a screenshot of the web page, of the program web page, with general information on the program. There's also a link you can follow for any organizations interested in requesting the permit for accreditation bodies. There's also a link that shows a list of all the accreditation bodies that have been acknowledged to date with their contact information. Here's a screenshot of the application portal. Everything is done online. And here we've highlighted the link for the application as an accreditation body. I've also included here a list of available resources on the program. As Nikki mentioned, some of these have been translated into Spanish and they will be available through this presentation. And I'd also like to highlight that in Fsma, you also have several links and even an FAQ document that provides information not just on this program, but also on others. If you have any questions, I recommend to first check that link before sending your questions to the Fsma portal or through IECA or the FDA office in Latin America. That would be it on my part. Thank you very much for your attention. I think we have some time for questions. So with that, I give the floor back to Ana Marisa and Nicole for that. Thank you. Thank you very much, Ken, for your presentation. Once again, we do have some time for questions and comments. Be sure to send your questions to the email address marcela.badilla@iica.int. We have some questions already. Nicole will ask the first one. Thank you.
In English, because that was the language in which it arrived to us. The question is from Jamaica, and it says, the Jamaican National Agency for Accreditation is a signatory to the ILAC Mutual Recognition Arrangement. Would FDA use this as a means of endorsement, removing the need for further documentation?
Would you like me to answer in Spanish or English? In Spanish, please. Thank you. So any organization that wishes to apply to become an accreditation body needs to go through the same process. So the application has to be done through the application portal and follow all the steps to apply for the accreditation body. To date, we have no other ways of doing that. So any organization needs to go through the same process for application. Thank you, Ken. Something that is important to clarify. Could you give us some more information on the fees you'd have to pay to become a certification or accreditation body? I think in the presentation, you mentioned that there is an initial fee to work on the recognition part, and then you have annual fees. Is that correct? Yes, thank you for your question. That's very important. And that's exactly it. For an accreditation body, or for the FDA to have the whole process of evaluating or assessing an application for accreditation body, there are several steps to take. First of all, you need to open an account in the portal, and there's a link for this in the presentation. So you open your account, you answer a series of questions, and after that, once the organization or entity has covered at least the first 103 questions in the system, they are sent an invoice, a bill, for the initial application fee for accreditation bodies seeking recognition. Until that fee is paid, and once it is paid, the FDA continues the process of assessing the application by the applicant, and they would start communicating with the entity for any other topics and questions they may have as part of the process. Also, the process includes an on-site audit of the accreditation body and asking for any corrective measures to be taken. Any of these found during the audit, there will be more communications, but then until the initial application fee for accreditation bodies seeking recognition is paid, the process is not actually launched. So as I said, the first thing to do is open an account, answer 103 questions that you will find in the system. At that point, you will be sent an invoice, and after the fee is paid, the process continues. So the other fees I have here, after you have already been recognized, there is an annual fee for recognized accreditation bodies. This would be paid the following year. And the FDA may also recognize an accredited institution for no more than 5 years. At the end of that recognition period, if the institution or organization still wishes to continue being recognized by the FDA, there is a renewal fee, which is in the following slide of this presentation. I hope that helps.
Thank you, Ken. Another question here. Could you please clarify also for which cases does this standard apply specifically? Because you mentioned also that there are some bodies that have been recognized for one regulation or another. So would you please clarify along those lines? Yes, thank you. Yes. So far, the 3 organizations that have been recognized as accreditation bodies, these have been recognized for some specific lines or what we call codes for the program. These are specific codes for the program. For example, ANAB has been recognized for fresh products for preventive controls for human food and preventive controls for animal food. What this means is that certification entities that want to be accredited by ANAB are only going to be accredited for these 3 codes only. Fresh products are one of those. It doesn't necessarily need to be all the 3, but those out of which the certification bodies are interested in certifying farms or facilities. ANAB might then accredit an accreditation body that's interested in being accredited for fresh products or for preventive controls for human food or preventive controls for animal food. That, for example. And also for the other two entities, we would have to see for which code has this accreditation body been recognized, so that the certification body is aware when requesting with that accreditation body the accreditation as a third-party certification. Thank you.
And it says, if the VQIP is a fee-based program, how will certification bodies perform facility audits unannounced? And I wonder if you could help us to clarify the difference between this program and VQIP, perhaps, as well as the different types of audits that would be conducted under this program.
No,
I don't think I understood the question, but my colleague Doris De Leon is going to be talking about the VQIP program, and I'm going to pass the microphone to her after this so that she can perhaps answer the question. I do not believe I did understand the question.
Let's move on to the next
Si
question we
puedes-
have
si
then.
lo puedes aclarar un poco, estaría bien, pero si no podemos esperar por Dory. Okay, perfect.
Thank you. Which certification bodies are currently accredited under the third-party program?
Okay. Muy buena pregunta. Al momento,
Very good question. Can you hear me? These three entities of accreditation bodies are also working on accrediting certification bodies. Right now, there's no one available. Once these are available, they're also going to be listed on the public list of bodies that is here. We're going to be publishing which certification bodies are available, as well as every accreditation body in the website specifically for this program has to say which certification bodies have been accredited and are available for each of these codes. So far, there's no certification body of any third party. Thank you, Ken. Is it necessary for certifying companies to be validated and accredited by FDA? Or if they are working with an accrediting body by certified by FDA, is that enough? For certification bodies, they have to request with the accreditation body entity that they are interested in. And aside from the requirements in the regulation as such, this third-party program, they're going to have other requirements through which that entity that wants to be accredited with certification bodies need to meet. I recommend you to take a look at the accreditation model in the accreditation guideline to have more information about what some of these requirements are. That is recommended that a certification body that is interested be accredited as an accreditation body recognized by the program, and that needs to be taken into account when requesting to be accredited by the third-party program as a certification body. Thank you, Ken. Could you please clarify what is the difference in what you mentioned in relation to a consultative audit and a regulatory audit? As I said, a consultative audit is an audit that a customer, a facility, or a farm asks for, or a certification body recommends a customer to carry forward to see if one of the reasons by which this consultative audit can be used is to see at which stage of compliance they are, depending on the code of FDA, whether fresh products or so that this certification body is accredited for that. It's to see how well prepared the company is to be in compliance with an FDA regulation. And it's more for preparation. Regulatory audit would be the audit that the certification body is going to be taking into account to issue the certification under third-party programs for FDA to issue that certification for the accreditation of the farm or product. The regulatory audit is the one to be used to issue that certification. For the consultative audit, no certification is issued. Thank you very much, Ken. We have another question here. It comes from a company that states that one of the plants has been certified under the voluntary mode of VRC for preventative controls according to Fsma. The question is specifically about the importance that FDA might assign to these types of certifications right now. In other words, is there some type of recognition, or will there be one in the future, thinking that the standards of the Global Food Safety Initiative that have been recognized are working to incorporate Fsma requirements? Yes, thank you for the question. FDA for now has not recognized any private standard like the VRC or any other. But certification bodies that carry forward audits would take that into account when performing the audit. But FDA as such has not recognized any private standard. However, on the website for FDA, we do have some tables for preventive controls for human food and preventive controls for animal food, as well as for fresh produce. And for these, not only the entities that you just mentioned, but also facilities and farms can use to analyze themselves to see how well prepared they are to be in compliance with each of these regulations. We can take that link to where this information is for it to be shared with those who are attending this webinar. And this can also be used as entities like VRC and others to make a benchmark analysis comparing to these regulations. We are also working on other regulations to have them available for the same purpose.
For you, and there are questions regarding the timelines, expected timelines for when to become a certifying accredited third, to become the different levels of this program. What would be the expected timeline once they enter the application, become accredited third party, or to become a certifying organism?
Creo que la pregunta tiene.
I believe that the question is related to the time that recognition takes to become an accreditation entity. Is that what I understood from your question? Yeah, right. Okay. The process may be, well, it could take around 6 months for the process to be complete, to be able to recognize an accreditation body that is requesting recognition. It has been more or less 6 months to carry forward the whole process for FDA to be able to recognize this accreditation body. Thank you, Ken. In different countries, it has been mentioned by some official services or by some national accreditation bodies that we have in the countries, there has been the interest of seeing if they can be recognized by FDA under any of these mechanisms. Along these lines, the question will be, we're clear that you mentioned a series of specific requirements that need to be met, but thinking in some cases in which this might be a government or government entity or any official agency within government institutions, is there any specific process for accompaniment that FDA is thinking in providing governments or countries which might be interested in meeting this process? Yes, thank you, Ana Marisa. I would like to talk a little bit more about the previous question. When I said 6 months, it's between 6 and 9 months mostly, what the time that the recognition of an accreditation body has taken. It is totally different with each entity that has requested this, but so far it's been between 6 and 9 months to complete the process. In relation to the most recent question, the National Bureau of Agricultural Community and Food Commodity and Food Standards, CACFS, is a government agency in Thailand. And they had to carry out the same process for the request to be recognized as an accreditation body. So far, there is no other mechanism for government entities abroad that request becoming accreditation or certification bodies. It's the same process available for government entities and for private entities. Thank you very much, Ken. Another question here is in relation to there being a mechanism or a tabulator for accredited bodies where we can establish the amounts or fees to be charged for their services, or how is it expected to control this? Each accreditation body has its own system of what are the fees to be collected so that a certification entity can request under this program to become accredited. FDA is not involved in this. It's up to each agency to establish these fees. Thank you. Another question. An accreditation body or a certification body, can these accredit or certify companies regardless of their country? Yes, provided that they have been accredited under this program. They do not have to work on a given region or country specifically. They can do it globally. We have a question here in relation to there being an equivalence process within the framework of what has been established by sanitary measures. We know that you are working or have worked with some countries more than on an equivalence mechanism, on a relative one, which is called comparability mechanism. I make this question based on the what is being asked here, but if you consider that something to be discussed at other time in a different forum, please feel free to let us know. Yes, those are things that are to be discussed separately. But quickly, yes, we do have equivalence programs for some products like seafood and the recognition system for food safety systems. It's totally separate from this program. A question in relation to the bodies presented like ANSI. Can they present other accreditation bodies, whether in the US or abroad? And if in limited circumstances, can you also accredit these certification bodies? I believe that you answered that already. No, accreditation bodies that have been recognized can only accredit third parties or certification bodies that are going to be carrying forward the audits and certifications under the regulatory audits. These entities of accreditation organizations recognized by FDA cannot accredit other accreditation bodies. This is something that FDA carries forward under the program. And certification bodies that are entities that would like to become accreditation bodies under this program need to be request directly from an accreditation body recognized by FDA to carry forward and fulfill all the requirements of the regulation of that and of the entity to be accredited under the program. Thank you. Another question in relation to the registration fee and the scope. Basically, I think that the question refers to, for example, if I register myself to be recognized for a specific regulation, that fee would cover up only for that regulation. And if I want to apply for another one, for example, you mentioned preventive controls for animal food, but you also mentioned fresh produce. Would I need to pay for that process twice, or how would that work? What would the process be? Very good question. When an entity requests becoming an accreditation body, the entity may request being recognized by any of the codes that are available in the system. And it could be for one or for all those in which they are interested in, and that they feel that they're capable of carrying forward and carrying out the program. It would be advisable that when the entity is requesting or applies for all the codes that are interested in, if they become later on interested on something else, there it could be added. But after the year, we should then directly communicate with that body to see how that would be handled on a case by case. Thank you very much. And the last question is in relation to companies which have been certified under ISO 22000 or FS 22000, are these recognized by FDA? No. These certifications are not recognized for now. The only certifications that shall be recognized are the ones that are going to be done through these third-party program so far. Thank you, Ken. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for your time and for your presentation and for the patience for answering to all these questions. And we're now going to move on to the next presentation on the Voluntary Qualified Importer Program that will be presented by Dorilis de Leon. So now you can stop sharing your screen in the presentation so that we can move on to Dorilis's presentation. Thank you very much. Good morning, Dorilis. Go ahead. Good morning, and thank you very much. Let me try to share my screen. As soon as Ken closes his. Yes, I'm trying to do so, but it's giving me some trouble. There it is. Okay, can you please confirm that my presentation is on? Yes, it is. Thank you. Good morning to all, and thank you very much for the opportunity of being here with you, thanks to technology also, to speak about this voluntary qualified importing program from FDA, the VQIP, as we know it, per its acronym, and I want to be referring to that program during this presentation. I really appreciate it with the industry and others are interested in knowing how we are moving along with the implementation of regulations and Fsma programs, because we all share a big commitment with food safety in our own countries and the food that we export abroad. What is VQIP? We requested FDA to establish a program that allowed us carrying forward a quick revision of imported food by voluntary participants. This occurred when Section 302 was added of the modernization legislation on food safety, or Fsma. It added this to Section 806 of the federal law on food, drug, and cosmetics. What is Fsma? Well, it's the Food Safety Modernization Act, which is a voluntary program, which is designed for importers that want to go beyond requirements of the standards on foreign supplier vendors, or FSVP, to provide greater food safety and security of their supply chains. The VQIP importer can be a manufacturer, a consignee, or an importer for food for humans and animals, provided that they can comply with admissibility criteria of the program. VQIP importers may but are not compelled to be an FSAB importer. And contrary to the FSVP importer, the VQIP importer is not necessarily located in the US. So as definition, a VQIP importer is the person that brings food or causes food to be brought from a foreign country into the customs territory of the United States. In November 2016, FDA published a guide for industry with information on the VQIP program. One of the criteria of the program is that food facilities and farms have to be certified by an accredited body under the third-party accrediting system that can just covered. The first accreditation body was recognized by FDA on January 31st this year. Right now, as Ken also mentioned, we have several accreditation bodies, but there is still no certification mechanism that is accredited. And we know that there are some that are in the process of entering into the program. When certification organizations are in the third-party program, we know that they will need time to perform audits and to provide certification to facilities and farms that wish to export products to an importer who wants to participate in the VQIP program. Applications shall be accepted since January 1st until May 31st each year. As you can see, the period for receiving applications is over for this year, and we are not going to receive or process any other application for the rest of 2018. Therefore, we're not going to be collecting any user fee for this fiscal year, and we still do not have any VQuip importer that will be receiving benefits for 2019. But for the time being, interested importers should begin getting ready for the application period for next year. We're going to be receiving applications for next year beginning on January 1st, 2019, and those that are accepted in the program shall begin receiving the benefits for fiscal year 2020 that begins on October 1st, 2019. These are the topics that I'm going to be talking about now. These are elements of the guidance. We're going to be talking about the benefits of the program, eligibility criteria, a little bit about how we can complete an application and request it to participate in the program. I'm going to be talking about user fees and also about the revocation and reinstatement processes for the program. And I'm also providing a link for the guidance, which I know was translated as part of this. There are several benefits of participating on the VQuip program. First of all foods included in an approved application receive income or accelerated entry into the United States. These foods may come from several foreign suppliers. This means that FDA shall configure our system for imports, for revision of imports, to recognize remittances of food that are part of an approved VQuip request and shall release them or let them in immediately, unless a sampling or examination is required at destination. But FDA in general is going to limit the examination or sampling from the products of a VQuip importer only to cases where there is a potential threat to public health. And during sampling or examination that I just mentioned, FDA shall attempt to the extent possible to examine a delivery and sample it if necessary at the destination for other VQuip foods or any other place where the VQuip importer prefers. If the food is sampled, the analysis at the lab shall be expedited above other similar foods that are not part of the VQuip program. FDA has also established a help desk for VQuip importers that's dedicated to answering questions and concerns for VQuip importers only. Another benefit of this program is that FDA shall post on the web page the number of VQuip importers that have been approved. However, VQuip importers may choose not to appear on that list. The guide also contains eligibility criteria for the program. In the guidance, we have information of how to complete an application, including the links to submit the request, the timing that I mentioned, the terms, when will the portal be open for receiving applications, also how to send modifications to a request, information of how FDA will review a request.
On user fees for VQuip, when the guide was published, the user fee would be $1,640, but we're still refining the user fees, and we will be publishing fees for next year at around August. We will consider any reduction on fees for small enterprises through regulations that are separate. The other two processes we describe in the guide are the revocation process and the reinstatement process, in case we find a VQuip importer that no longer complies with the eligibility criteria for the program. Expectations for VQuip importers is that they have a robust program and they may quickly react to any problems or issues with foods and correct them. Whether changing suppliers or working with their suppliers to correct the problem. Other eligibility criteria for VQIP. As I had mentioned, the key to participate in VQIP will be to develop and implement a program for assurance, quality assurance, QAP. This includes policies and procedures, written policies and procedures related to safety and security of products. I should also mention that when we talk about quality assurance programs, we're talking about the quality of the program itself, not necessarily the quality of products, although we know that it is important to have quality products. Assurance of compliance with supplier verification and other importer responsibilities under the program for foreign providers that applies. And also responsibilities with risk analysis for juice and critical control points for HACCP, HACCP regulations for seafood and juices. Those two regulations also have responsibilities, importer responsibilities. So FSVP and HACCP regulations that importers must comply are, I would say, the basics, the basic criteria they need to have. Above that, you would have the other requirements we've mentioned for being part of VQIP. The third criteria would be certification of each facility issued under third-party accreditation programs of the FDA. For each foreign food provider importing food under VQIP. For fruits and vegetables, there has to be a certification for the farm. Other criteria is having 3 or more years of history of importing food to the United States. And the final guide clarifies that this history of imports can be based on the shared import history with other companies or headquarters, such as those who have been involved in mergers and acquisitions. Also, if requested, an importer, a food importer that has more than 3 years of history of importing, we might require more information from them. So we would ask for more history if necessary. Another criterion is that VQIP importers should not have any ongoing FDA administrative or judicial actions, for example, being under an import alert, revocation, or other non-compliance, significant non-compliance with food safety standards. Or for other entities in the supply chain, for example, foreign providers. Or one of the importers with whom we do business, whether FSVP or HACCP, or having problems with food. So basically, to participate in the program, VQIP importers should help solve any issues the companies with which they do business may have. VQIP importers and each entity as part of their application should have a data universal numbering system number, a DUNS. From Dun & Bradstreet, we also have links for that on the webpage. If the VQIP importer does not have it yet, so they may get it. We also add the phone number and email. All entities doing business with the U.S. government can receive that Duns and Bradstreet number for free. As for the quality assurance program, it's the QAP as we know it. And the QAP is a collection of policies and procedures written with food safety and security in mind throughout the supply chain, as well as an explanation of how this policy is communicated internally. As part of the program, we would also like to have a description of the organizational structure and individual responsibilities. Policies and procedures to ensure food safety from source to entry, for example, temperature and storage controls. Other elements of this program are having a food defense system to protect against intentional adulteration. As part of this program, VQIP importers, we know, participate, at least some participate in another voluntary program for Customs and Border Control that is called CTPAT. There's several levels. And if the importer is part of this program at a level 2 or 3 and mentioned this in their VQIP application, the institution need not give any additional information regarding transport procedures in terms of food defense. So that avoids duplicating efforts if they are already part of the customs program. Another element are the requirements for experience and training for employees responsible to implement the QAP. And as we said before, the application period for VQIP this year has already closed. But we can recommend for those interested in participating in the program that they continue monitoring the FDA's website for recognized and accredited bodies, and also in that same page or in the accredited bodies webpage, look for the certification bodies that have already been accredited. They can also schedule audits for suppliers to be included in the application for completion in time for next year's cycle. Additionally, as part of the process of application for the VQIP, they should submit a notice of intent to participate. So the FDA is aware that there is someone interested in filling an application for the program. And there we can see the resources we need when we get the request at the FDA to be able to look at it shortly. You can also begin filling out the application in the system, although the FDA will not review it before January 1st next year, as I mentioned before. But you can fill it out and save it, or go filling it out slowly as you get the information. I have also included the help desk information here, as well as a link to the website for the specific FDA page. All documents related to the program can be found there, and that link is the same as Ken mentioned before. It's related to all the Fsma related programs. That would be it on my part, and I think we have some time for questions.
first question for you is, if the VQuip is a fee-based program, how certification bodies perform facility audits unannounced?
Sí, es un programa de carácter voluntario.
Yes, it is a voluntary program. For each application, there is an annual fee to participate in the program.
But based on that one, how will certification, how does the FDA envision certification bodies performing audits unannounced, given the company's participation in this program?
Well, I should clarify that this program is for the importer. The importer may be a company, a foreign company, but generally speaking, importers will receive FDA audits on their VQuip program. So the QAP and their program, how they manage the supply chain. The facilities, farms, or companies that receive a certification by a certification body are something different. They're separate. They do work together, but it is a separate topic. I am not sure, but this might be a question for Ken. How, under the third-party accreditation program, how will certification bodies perform their audits? Yes, can you hear me? Yes, we hear you. Ken, go ahead. Thank you, Dory. Unannounced audits are those that are the regulatory audits performed by accredited bodies under the program. Those are the ones that should be unannounced. The audits they perform on facilities or farms. I should also clarify that related to this, another big difference among the consultative and regulatory audits are the report. The certification body does not need to send reports to the FDA on consultative audits. They do need to keep the information in case it is necessary for the FDA to review that. But as for regulatory audits, there are some specific requirements in the regulations where certification bodies need to report certain specific parts of regulatory audits to the FDA within a certain time frame. And they should also keep records of all other information that is not included in those lines or areas required as part of the FDA report, in case they are necessary and if the FDA wishes to see this information. Also, accreditation bodies and certification bodies that perform audits or work in companies in the United States need not participate in this program. This program, as Dory has also said, is first of all a voluntary program. And it is indicated for VQuip importers. As we heard from Dory, the VQuip importers that want to be part of the program. So they might also need an audit under that program for the import certification tool, but the FDA would let the company or government or country know if that were the case. Thank you very much for that clarification. Another question on VQuip and the clarification of fees as well. we would have to pay an initial fee as well for the application. Do I need a fee to send the application to be acknowledged plus the annual fee? And are you thinking about differential fees for smaller enterprises? Yes, the annual fee is the same every year. So this is different from the third-party program in that sense. They have we have the same fee every year. So the cost does not change in that sense. We do not foresee it changing drastically from one year to the next. There's just maybe a change in the cost of maintaining the program for the FDA. As I said before, we are considering if this is finally done, we would establish it separately for smaller enterprises. There might be a differential rate or fee for others. I'd like to mention something just to simplify the process as such. Anyone interested in participating in the program would fill out the application. The FDA reviews it. The FDA does the VQIP importer audit. Then the FDA would send the bill for the fees. Importers pay the fees and they would be participating in the program or receive benefits starting on October 1st. Again, this is a bit different from what Ken described, and that's why I wanted to mention it. There are some differences in the sense that of how we handle the initial fee. Thank you, Dory. Now that you mentioned this on the application, if I am an exporter, company that exports food to the United States, and I am interested in being part of the program, who should submit the application? My company, myself as a businesswoman, or should it be the importer in the United States doing it? That's a very good question. As I said in the beginning, it can be done by the exporting company as well, as long as the company can comply with the eligibility criteria for the program. The definition of a VQIP importer allows the company to be in a foreign country, not necessarily in the United States. But if a company works with, the foreign company works with an importer, that importer should or might want to participate in the VQIP program, and they may also do it that way. Thank you very much. Another question, this is for both of you. Trying to see if there's any diagram available to see how the, or workflow to see how this third-party program works and the VQIP as well. For the third-party accreditation program, we have a guide, a guidance on the standards. There's a link included for this in the presentation. It has been translated into Spanish by AICA and FDA in Latin America. There you will find information on the things to consider by an accreditation or certification body when applying for accreditation under an FDA acknowledged accreditation body and under this program. So there you would have all the requirements, what you need to have when filling it out and during your performance. I also recommend looking at the rules themselves. These are very specific regulations in terms of the responsibilities for each entity, everything they have to comply with to participate in the program. There are other resources that have also been translated into Spanish that include information on how this program is implemented and how it should be performed for each body or institution working in the program. For VQuip, as I said, we also have a guidance that has been translated into Spanish, and in the links provided, you can follow it and you can see it. In Spanish, we also have a summary of a page on programs. And this is a summary on all the benefits and eligibility criteria of the program. You can also receive that under this seminar. Thank you very much. As for VQuip, who qualifies the importer? Is it an FDA inspector or certification body? And how long does that take? It's done by FDA staff. The audit for the VQuip importers is done by the FDA. We have not done one to date. I can't really tell you exactly how long it would take. We foresee that just comparing with other audits and inspections we do on importers, it would probably take 2 to 3 days. Not more than a week, I'm guessing, but we have not carried one out yet, so I can't give you an exact time. A good estimate would be 2 to 3 days. Thank you. As for the qualified person, what you mentioned on the quality assurance program, how would you validate the necessary experience for staff implementing that program? We don't have any specific description for people in that post, as we do have for other Fsma regulations. So this person can have certain years of experience or education to prove that they can perform that job. Thank you. I think this question applies to both. And it is a bit related to how both of these regulations complement each other. It refers to the third-party regulations and asking whether it is focused on suppliers for a VQuip provider, for a VQuip importer, and if verifications will be done on already certified companies or if they will be part of a program certification of the whole program. Companies that already have third-party certifications will not receive another audit under VQuip by the FDA. That does not mean that the FDA will not be inspecting necessarily. They might receive an inspection as part of our inspection program, but not as part of VQuip directly. Thank you, Dorian. I'd also like to add that this would be for the farm or facility in the code for which it has been certified. So for example, it could be a very specific certification to one product that this company exports and that the VQuip importer imports and through which they request to be part of VQuip. So for example, they might be importing canned foods or specific food, say canned olives, and that facility may also be producing other products that are not part of this application, because we can have very specific applications. In that case, there might be other audits whether through this certification, if there's another importer participating for other products, or a routine inspection by the FDA for any other products that are not necessarily part of the VQIP application. Thank you. We have a question for the VQIP program. Is there any kind of control by the FDA in terms of fees charged by certification bodies under this program? And again, if certification or certified or accredited bodies under the third-party rule can perform these tasks under VQIP outside their country of origin. Well, through the VQIP program, we will not participate in describing any fees or charges done by certification bodies, as Ken said. And the second part of the question, if we can receive or we accept certifications from other countries where audits have been made or audits to foreign countries, they all wish to participate under VQIP. So yes, we are not limited to a single country. And for the import of several products, you need to comply with regulatory FDA regulations and USDA. Is there any combination or a relation between these two? Yes, thank you very much. Government agencies in the US always try as much as possible to align their import programs. As I mentioned before, VQIP is working with customs in safety and security of foods against any intentional adulterations. To date, with the FDA, we have not aligned any specifics yet. Our regulations under USDA for products have not been aligned to FDA. So VQIP to date is only considered for FDA regulations.
In case there are companies that are If the question is for me, I can't hear. Can you hear me better now? Yes. In case there are companies that are exporting companies and they themselves are importers in turn, where would the audit take place? In the country of origin of the food or in the place of arrival at the importer's warehouse? That is a very good question. In that case, FDA would consult with the company where the program takes place. So if the program as such has the documents in the country of origin, then FDA will have to go and visit that place. If all the program's documents are with the importer in the United States, well, it's there where we would go during the visit or inspection or audit, in this case, of the VQIP importer. In relation to VQIP, it was said that a validation activity might take between 2 to 3 days. What would be the duration of the score that FDA would grant to the VQIP importer? That is, would the next audit be 2 or 3 years later? Is there a specific definition for that? Yes, Fsma says that we have to hold the audit every 3 years. So every 3 years, an audit can be expected for the VQuip program. Another question on VQuip. We understand that there are fees for this program. If I have 10 products, for example, I have to pay for the fee for each product, or it would be a single one. If it's a single fee because it's for the VQuip importer, there can be several foreign suppliers, and it can work with several importers, FSVP or HACCP. So the fee is for the VQuip importer, and there can be several different products.
Moment. In the presentation, you commented about eligibility requirements for businesses that want to participate in VQuip, and you mentioned that they should have a history free of non-compliance issues. Would you be willing to define what you mean by non-compliance? And if a business has such a history, is there anything they can do to overcome this history so that they can be eligible for VQuip in the future?
Sí, muy buena pregunta.
Yes, that's a very good question. In the guides, we speak more about those things that can be considered as a non-compliance. As I mentioned, it would be, I'm going to try to answer this in English. It'll be better. The list would be to have the company listed in an import alert. The VQuip importer has not responded to an FDA letter, or to which is a warning letter, or a letter in which we suggest or ask correcting some issue that we have found during an inspection to the company. In the guide, we explained all of the things that we have, and any company that's interested in working there, because oftentimes what happens is that there is a company that for one reason or the other, there was an import warning and nothing has been done to fix that, or to provide FDA with information informing that the problem has been corrected. So that way we suggest a VQuip importer that they work with that company to fix the situation. Oftentimes it is that there has not been a real request to the agency in saying that there has been fulfillment, and that the name can be removed from the import warning. That would be one of the things that a company that is interested in participating in the VQuip program could do, and a company that works with someone who has some kind of FDA noncompliance. Thank you very much for your clarification. Couple of questions in relation to the accredited third-party program. I think that Ken already asked this, but we have received 4 or 5 similar questions. So I believe that it is important to go back on it. As a state agency, how can a government be recognized by FDA as a certification body and not going through the accreditation body recognition? And the other thing is in relation to the term for the certification for, is it annual, biannual, etc.? Yes, thank you for the question. The regulation allows FDA to do what is called a direct accreditation with a certification body, but it is only when there are no accreditation bodies available for that code specifically. And for now, we already have 3 accreditation bodies that can work on an accreditation for certification bodies for several different codes under the program. For the time being, FDA is not contemplating carrying out a direct accreditation of certification body, whether government agencies or private agencies, since we have several accreditation bodies available so that any entity that wants to request as the certification organization can request for that accreditation. So as the certification is an annual certification for the facility or for the farm. Thank you very much, Ken and Dory, for your time, for the comments, and all the feedback provided to us today. I believe that we would now then be closing up for today's activity. But before doing so, I would like to yield the floor to Ken or Dory should they want to make a closing or final comment. Yes, thank you very much to ICA and to FDA in the Latin American office for making this webinar possible. The questions have been really good and we really appreciate your questions also. We would just want to highlight that the information will be shared through the ICA portal, and any other question you have can be sent through Fsma or through ICA. Thank you very much and have a wonderful day. Yes, just like him, I would like to thank you all. First of all, ICA and FDA in Latin America for inviting us today. We are really glad for sharing this information with all of you. And thank you very much for all your questions and comments about these two programs. On behalf of my colleagues at the VQuip program, something that we would like to mention, and which will be mentioned during this, which has been mentioned during this presentation, is that this is a voluntary program and we require interest in the program. So the more questions there are or consultations are made with the certification bodies so that they can certify the companies with which they would like to work, for them to have that certification to work with VQuip importers that want to participate in the program. Well, that's the recommendation we give you. The more interest, the more the program will grow. Thank you very much for your attention and for your questions. And as Ken had mentioned before, should you have any further questions, do not hesitate to contact us. Have a wonderful day. Thank you very much once again, Dory and Ken, for your time, for your patience, and for the wonderful presentations you have given us today. We want to thank all our participants in the countries who have been with us in ICA's offices or directly through the link of this event for being with us today. And once again, for any comment on this or any question, please feel free to contact us in case you require further information. And also we want to extend our gratitude to Nikki and the FDA Office for Latin America and the Caribbean for all the effort to hold this webinar today. And goodbye to all. Thank you very much once again, and we shall keep in touch. Bye-bye.